Now, I've called this a couple of times and I want to try and keep this condensed and concise whilst getting the point across, all about this rotational topic of power and anti-rotation work. Now, specifically speaking, in order for us to understand what the right focus is, we need to take a basic biomechanical understanding of movement and generation of power. So a couple of things to note. Obviously, when we generate power, we need to put force into the ground. You can't double jump in real life. And so that allows us to generate power through the kinetic chain. Say, for example, having a rotational sport, and I say rotational because to the untrained eye, it may look like that, such as tennis and golf. The majority of the time, the force is going to be generated from the hip extension, from the twist and snap of the hip. Now, where is that force coming from? It's coming from the ground. And so majority of the time, when we are generating force, especially when we're using what looks like our trunk, it is from the ground up. So that's number one. The second aspect is when we talk about change direction, and in particular, we need midline bracing, and not for what you think. Now, yes, it is important to have capacity and strength when we are a multi-directional sport, or we do require some level of change direction. However, that is not the be all and end all, because what's important and what a lot of people tend to forget, especially you see this with the understanding of the individual in biomechanics, is sequencing and coordination. And what do I mean? So when we are changing direction, say for example, it's a 180 and we're coming back on ourselves, or we are cutting, we need to sequence our body and coordinate our body so that we are performing the right shapes to manipulate our momentum, keeping our midline brace so that when we do press into the ground and to drive off after taking our deceleration steps to reaccelerate, that transfer of energy through the kinetic chain is efficient. And so we need a level of midline bracing, but that level of capacity is not as great as you think in requirement to the coordination and sequencing of that movement. And so for me, I train a lot of anti-rotation work with new individuals in the gym, or people, everyday athletes that are starting to get fit, that want to actually uphold a level of good movement. However, that is the baseline. Building on top of that, and this is why nuance is so important, we want to then start developing that sequencing, developing that coordination, getting the body and the individual to understand how we move, so that when we do actually ask that task in game scenarios, we can start to perform it. We're going to come on to agility, which is a response to a true stimulus, not change direction, which is a whole ball game in itself. But I just think it's really, really important, because movement, biomechanics, performance is nuanced. That ability to physically develop someone as a fundamental is key. But if your goal is to actually perform at a greater level, then we've got to start taking these ideas to a different degree and start applying real world development, good movement in sport, to our training practices. But they need to be grounded in theory.